I'm always blown away when someone's so multi-talented. Like, this guy was one of the best athletes on the planet. He's an unbelievable television commentator. Then he's got all this stuff on culture and social issues. What could you help us understand that we need to know to prevent, frankly, what could be like a really chaotic next 6 to 8 months of most of our lives, dominated by the noise and the division and the people really digging into their positions?
Man, we live in a world, Ed, where that's life now. To not discuss it, I feel like, would be to not discuss humanity. I just think we're deeper humans than that. Just be cognizant of who you converse with. Not everyone is worthy of your time. Oftentimes, Ed, back with my show, people will say, Emmanuel, you should have a conversation with this person, or you should have a conversation with that person. I said, Ed, they're not trying to have a conversation. They're trying to have an argument. I'm not looking to have uncomfortable arguments. I'm looking to have uncomfortable conversations that will quickly become comfortable. We far too often as people, we miss the aspect of listening to understand. We just listen to respond and listen to respond, but did you even hear what I was trying to say? And I think that's why people avoid it, because they're not particular enough or prudent enough with who they have conversations with. And as a result, they exhaust themselves. I believe that maintaining an ignorant opinion is to disrespect your own intellect. And I would rather disrespect my quote unquote tribe if my tribe is being ignorant than disrespect my own intellect if I have now unlocked the aperture of my mind to a new way, to a better way, to a more righteous way, to a more honest way, to a more just way. What is the intention of the person I'm talking to? If the intention of the person is a gotcha moment, I'm out. If the intention of the person is not reconciliation, I'm out. If the intention of the person is not to hear what I have to say while simultaneously allowing me to hear what they have to say, I'm out. So the best question we can ask anyone during the course of conversation is, what is your intention? For my intention is to change the world, and I truly believe I can.
I've never been more convinced of what someone has said on my show than what you just said right there, than any point ever made on the show. Welcome back to the show, everybody. So I'm excited to have this man on the show. I think he's got the best energy on all of television. In fact, I was just watching him on Speak on FS1 about, I don't know, hour and a half ago. I was just literally watching him. So he changed out of those beautiful clothes he was on. He's got a sweatsuit for me. So that tells you what he thinks of me. I'm just kidding. I've had his brother on the show, Sam. He just comes from a remarkable family. Former NFL linebacker. This guy's done so much. Emmy award-winning series that he's got that he produced called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. Had a great book called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Boy. So I figured I need to have him on so we can just have an uncomfortable conversation and change some lives. So Emmanuel Acho, welcome to the show.
My brother, I've heard nothing but good things. I call you a brother because you've had my brother on, my blood brother, Sam Acho. Y'all's conversation was fantastic. So I am looking forward to this dialogue, dude. I don't talk often outside of my sports show. But when I find genuine people and meaningful people, dude, I'm excited.
Well, I'm grateful for that. And we're going to skip around a little bit today, guys, because I told him before we started, his personal development, what I'd call like self-help, improve your life content, is incredible. And you could miss it because he's such a cultural figure now and talks about such heavy issues, important issues. And then, of course, he's got his sports background. But in there deep is his personal development stuff, which is outstanding. So we'll move in and out. But let's talk about these uncomfortable conversations first. What happened to, I just got to ask you this, what happened to don't discuss race, religion, or politics? That's what, when I was growing up, it's like, hey, your family's coming over. Let's have some peace. No race, no religion, no politics. And yet you go completely the other direction.
Man, we live in a world, Ed, where that's life now. To not discuss it, I feel like, would be to not discuss humanity. I feel like it would be to not discuss you, Ed, not discuss me, Emmanuel, because we are individuals who have a racial identity. We're individuals who have a religious identity. We're individuals who every 4 years, more potent than others, have political identities. So I personally don't discuss politics because of how convoluted that particular conversation gets. But to not discuss race, to not discuss religion, that's to not discuss humanity. So I just think we're deeper humans than that.
although we're not going to discuss politics, you and I both know we're about to enter a 6 or 8 month window coming up that I worry about our country in, to be really honest with you. I worry about the nature of the dialogue, the vitriol. I worry about that a lot. So, A, why do you think most people avoid it? And then B, what could you help us understand that we need to know to prevent, frankly, what could be like a really chaotic next 6 to 8 months of most of our lives, dominated by the noise and the division and the, people, really digging into their positions?
Well, I think the first thing I try to do, and I've been advised to do, is just be cognizant of who you converse with. Not everyone is worthy of your time. Oftentimes, Ed, back with my show, Uncomfortable Conversations, you mentioned I won an Emmy for it by the grace of God. People say, Emmanuel, you should have a conversation with this person, or you should have a conversation with that person. I said, Ed, they're not trying to have a conversation. They're trying to have an argument. I'm not
Right.
looking to have uncomfortable arguments. I'm looking to have uncomfortable conversations that will quickly become comfortable. I also think, Ed, bro, we far too often as people, we miss the aspect of listening to understand. We just listen to respond and listen to respond, but did you even hear what I was trying to say? And I think that's why people avoid it, because they're not particular enough or prudent enough with who they have conversations with. And as a result, they exhaust themselves.
You know what? You're right about both those things. My one thing has changed as I've become older is I never did before. I approach conversations more now. I just enjoy them more, to understand more than I do to be understood. And I actually have uncovered that if you feel as if I understand you, you're more open to understanding me, and I can feel understood. My dad, before he passed away, my favorite man in the world was my dad. But like about every issue, he and I were on different sides of, or different perspectives. And I got to tell you, this is how I'm saying something I've never said on the show before, but I wanted to say to you because I just think your work's so profound. My dad was in chemotherapy, like really struggling for his life. I know I'm losing him in the next 6 months to 2 years. And even at that, I had that ugly a conversation. It literally wounded my soul when we did it. And what I did is what you just said. To give you an example, I called him back. I said, let's do this again. Let me understand you. Just let me understand you. And it was like, it became a beautiful conversation because I made that shift. You have this amazing piece of content, brother. I hope you remember it, because people ask me sometimes and I don't, about looking at people as if they're part of your house, the house analogy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Windows, you got doors, and you got floors.
This is legit, because I think it helps us see people at different places in our life, whether they are worthy of these conversations or not. So give them this example. You guys will not forget this. Listen to this.
So I view my people in my life as aspects of a house. In a house, you have windows, you got doors, and you got floors. And the thing about your door friends is that a house, it has more windows and it has doors, and it has more doors than it has floors. Your door friends, they may come in and out of your life. They'll enter your life, they'll leave your life, they'll be there for a moment. Your door friends are people who you will have friendships with for months, maybe even years. Then you have your window friends. Your window friends, they can see inside of your house. Your window friends text you on your birthday. They can see inside your life. They text you on Christmas. They text you on Easter. They text you when you lose a loved one. They text you for the birth of a child. But your window friends, they don't really know intimate details about your life. Your door friends come in and out of your life depending on the season of your life. If your life starts to get a little too cold, they might leave. If the life starts to get a little too hot, they might leave. But you have to have grace for your door friends, because they weren't dressed for the season. But then you have the oh so special floor friends. And though your house might only have 1 or 2 floors, upstairs, downstairs, depending on your house, your floor friends are there for it all. They hold you up, quite literally. They're there to catch your tears. They've heard all of your conversations. They've heard your darkest secrets. They've heard your fears. And so I view in my life, my door friends, my window friends, my floor friends. But Ed, I think the sweetest part of this all is understanding you need windows, you need doors, and you need floors. They all play parts in your house, which is your life.
Let me ask you about your floor friends. I wrestle with this. Do you think your floor friends have to believe what you believe? I've always navigated this. Like, I want my friends to share my value system, but I think a value system is different than necessarily beliefs. And I think a lot of times people they conflate that. So like the only people around them agree with them on almost everything. And then that's, to me, like, I like people that disagree with me. It challenges me, expands my horizons, makes me think out of the box. It's actually stimulating conversation. If we're all just, yeah, man, yeah, I agree, you're right. That just seems to me like not a real fruitful existence. But what's your take on that? Floor friends have to share your beliefs or just your values?
Man, I believe, and I love how you define beliefs and values. I think people might define them differently in their own unique way. I would say it like your floor friends should have similar roots, but they might have different branches. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like your floor friends, the roots should be the same. And if you can visualize, everybody listening and watching, if you can visualize a tree, and a tree has several branches and it has different leaves, but it has a root. And from that root, it has the base of the tree, and then it has branches. Your floor friends should have similar roots. If y'all got different branches, yo, that is what it is. I do believe floor friends should share similar roots because if they don't, there will come a time when the sun exposes that friendship, and then it comes down to, were they really a floor friend, or did they just become a door friend? Life will happen. We might have Roe v. Wade situations. We might have wars in the Middle East. We might have elections. We might have racial tension, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, I didn't realize you were. And now all of a sudden, are they a floor friend or are they a door friend?
Wow. My gosh. All right, tough one. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp, everybody. And I'm so grateful that we are because, I really believe in therapy. And so many people ask me, what do all the people on your show have in common? Because I've had athletes, entertainers, scientists, political figures, business leaders, self-improvement folks. And what do they all have in common? The vast majority of them have been to therapy and it's helped them. And so therapy can help you in a lot of different ways. It could be that you just really need to work through a challenge or a problem you've got right now. Maybe you just need somebody to talk to. But maybe you're going through a really difficult, dark time and you need some professional help to work your way through it. And that's why I love therapy, but especially BetterHelp, because you can do it online. And if you don't vibe with your therapist, they'll switch you out and get you somebody that you click with instantly. It can make a big difference in your life. So whether you're going through just kind of a difficult time and want to talk out loud about it, therapy's the way to go. And I love BetterHelp. So never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/edshow today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/edshow. Here's one of the things why I think people have a hard time being persuaded. I want you to speak to this. And it's that if they change their point of view, they've disrespected their tribe or the group they're a part of. And there's a lot of pressure on certain, you're really smiling. There's a lot of pressure on certain people. There is for me in my role. Stephen was telling me, he goes, look, man, I'm on television and an issue that comes up about race. He goes, while I'm on the air, I'm getting text messages from different people, very significant people telling me, you better say this, you better do that. And he said, it's difficult for me because if I vary from whatever it is, you could have a political tribe, a racial tribe, a religious tribe, whatever that might be. If I change my mind or I take a position that's not part of my group, somehow I've disrespected or I may lose that group in terms of their loyalty to me. And I really feel like there's a lot of that in life right like now, because these window friends or these other people around, it's like, wow, if I change my mind about this, or I let them know I've changed my mind about this, I've disrespected or I could lose this group of people. And I think that's one of the reasons people neglect to change their mind sometimes. You see some of that, and do you struggle with that?
That's well said. I see it a lot. The reason I do not struggle with that is because I believe that maintaining an ignorant opinion is to disrespect your own intellect. And I would rather disrespect my quote unquote tribe if my tribe is being ignorant than disrespect my own intellect if I have now unlocked the aperture of my mind to a new way, to a better way, to a more righteous way, to a more honest way, to a more just way. There is a lot of peer pressure to maintaining ignorance, but how can I maintain ignorance? I believe it was Maya Angelou who said, to know better is to do better. Like, once you know better, do better.
When do you know if you should disengage from a conversation?
I disengage from conversations when I realize the intention of the other person isn't actually to draw a conclusion. One of my favorite questions to ever ask anybody in life, and it came from Oprah. After I recorded my second episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. I sat down with Matthew McConaughey. He called me from a no-caller ID number. This is a true story, ladies and gentlemen. McConaughey says, hey, I want to sit down with you for your second episode of Uncomfortable Conversations. Mind you, I was producing it myself, Ed. I rented out a studio space in Austin by myself. I was not yet a mainstay television personality. I literally hired a wedding videographer because I had no video team. I found a friend who shot weddings. I said, please stand in, shoot this for me. McConaughey watches the first episode. It had been seen by 25 million people in 5 days. And he says, hey, I want to have a conversation. I do not know to this day how he got my number. Me and Matthew McConaughey, we sit down for a conversation. 5 days later, after that conversation airs, I get a call from another no-caller ID number. I pick it up. Hi, Emmanuel. Oprah Winfrey speaking. I say, Oprah? She says, yeah, are you free to FaceTime later today? I FaceTime her later that afternoon. Again, true story, ladies and gentlemen. She asked me one simple question, Ed, one very simple question. And I live by this. This brings this conversation full circle. She said, Emmanuel, what is your intention? I said, Oprah, my intention is to change the world, and I truly believe I can. I said, I'm currently working on writing a book. She said, books? I love books. And that's why Oprah and I partnered together to write the first several of the Uncomfortable Conversation series. Now, bringing this full circle to answer your question.
Incredible.
What is the intention of the person I'm talking to? That is how I know when to end a conversation. If the intention of the person is a gotcha moment, I'm out. What do I mean by a gotcha moment? Let's speak plainly. If the person just wants to try to make me look stupid, I'm out. If the intention of the person is to, figuratively speaking, dunk on me, if the intention of the person is to be like, boom, I got Emmanuel, I'm out. If the intention of the person is not reconciliation, I'm out. If the intention of the person is not to hear what I have to say while simultaneously allowing me to hear what they have to say, I'm out. So the best question we can ask anyone during the course of conversation is the question that Oprah asked me first. What is your intention?
When I was really young, I won my first incentive trip to go to Hawaii. I'd never been there before as a kid. We didn't do that kind of thing. And maybe you know who this guy is, but I'll share this with you about intention. So I got up. No one worked out back in those days. I'm old enough. And I read this book called The Corporate Athlete, this guy named Gropel. And I'm like, I'm going to be an athlete businessman, right? I'm going to be one of the first ones who's like fit and jacked, but in business. And so I'm running on this beach in the morning. Sun's not up yet. And there's this guy running towards me coming the other way. And I see him. How old I was, I had a Sony Walkman on playing a cassette. So did he. That's how old I am. Anyway, this dude's running by me, and he's getting close, and I'm like, oh, he's a bald dude. He's got like this hairy back, and I'm like, and he's sweating. I'm like, I don't want to bump this guy. And as he runs by me, I look, it's Dr. Wayne Dyer, who was a hero of mine at the time, one of the great thought leaders, good men of all time. And I turn around, I go, Dr. Dyer, just to your point. And he turns around, he's about maybe like 20 feet from me. I said, you changed my life. And he goes, he had a deep voice like me. He goes, I doubt that. He goes, I bet you changed your life, but how did I help you? And he walks towards me, and I end up sitting on the beach that day, brother, with Wayne Dyer watching the sun come up. At the end of the conversation, just to validate your point, he says to me, he goes, Ed, I think you're going to change the world. Now, I'm a young guy at the time. Probably he said that to 100 people, but to me, he had only said it to me. And he goes, it's not because you're a talented guy or brilliant or a great communicator, but he goes, I think you are. But he goes, it's because of your intentions. He goes, I think you have a good heart. I think you're a good man. I think you want to make a difference. And he said, would you do me a favor? The rest of your life, would you attach all of your confidence and your worth, not to your abilities or your results, but to your intentions? Because if it's about your abilities and your results, you'll be chasing your tail and letting yourself down all the time. And then he wrote a book called The Power of Intention. I've never been more convinced of what someone has said on my show than what you just said right there, than any point ever made on the show. Because that has literally been the key to whatever limited success I've had in my life, is focusing on my intentions at all given time. So I just want to acknowledge what you said right there. It's profound and it's brilliant. The other thing that I think a leader has, and I'll let you finish this quote, but What if you've had a bad conversation with somebody and it's ended, like I did with my dad? And you said a leader isn't the first in line, a leader is blank.
The first to apologize.
Mm. You guys all hear that right there? Let that sink in for a minute. First to apologize. Why do you say that? Of all the things a leader could be, the first to apologize?
Chuck Klosterman wrote a book, But What If We're Wrong? And I believe we've gotten leadership wrong in society, not just in America. I think we've gotten leadership wrong in the world. Hopefully those listening hang on to the next few words, because in society, we're convinced that leaders are the first to yell. Leaders are the first to be followed. Leaders are the first to make an authoritative decision. But what if leaders are the first in humility? What if leaders are the first to say sorry? What if leaders are the first to recognize their own wrongdoing? What if you can lead in that? And I don't say that facetiously, and I also don't say that for the intention of being counterintuitive. I say that genuinely, like, what if we're wrong about leadership? What if we've gotten it all wrong? What if this whole time I thought leading was who's the loudest, but leading is who can listen the best? Like, what if we're wrong? And I believe that leadership is who can be the first to apologize. I was in a conversation earlier today, Ed, and I was talking and my friend was talking, and then I was talking and my friend was talking. And I was like, you know what? Neither of us are hearing the other. So I'm just going to be quiet and listen. Go ahead. Because I was like, we've gone back and forth 7 minutes now, and I'm talking about A and you're talking about B. And then I'm talking about A and you're talking about B. So I said, you know what? Let me just talk about B. We can get to A later. I want to talk about A, but we'll just talk about B for right now. And I believe that leaders have to be the person to acknowledge, hey, let me be sacrificial for a moment.
Yes. So last night, talking with your brother, and I said, give me something to ask him that you would want to know about your own brother, because the two of you are very, very close. Yeah. And he goes, I need to think about it, seriously. And so then he messaged me back. I was surprised by his question. Your own brother wants to know this answer. So, and I'm curious too, when I watch you, like, you're very busy. You were literally just on television, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. He asked me to ask you, and this is very basic, but I think it gives insight into an elite performer. He said, ask him actually what motivates him. What is it that actually motivates him? I was surprised your own brother was curious about that answer, and it made me like super curious about someone who achieves at a level like you are. What is it that motivates you?
I think I want to exhaust my life. That's what motivates me, man. I want to exhaust my life. Like, I'm not going to get emotional here. And if I do, I'm going to close the camera because I'm not going to get emotional in public. But
okay.
I don't want to leave anything unfulfilled. You know, and God's given me a lot. Yes. And so, like, I would be a terrible steward to not maximize it. He's made, I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm good, but I'm not that good. And like, favor's not fair, but like, dude, I picked up a football, I made it to the NFL. I picked up a microphone, I won 2 Emmys. I picked up a pen, I was a #1 New York Times bestseller. Like, dude, I'm not that good. God, he's made me, he's made me so gifted that, like, so I have an obligation to myself to be the best, because he gave it to me. So like, how could I come back empty-handed, you know?
I love that you're emotional, brother. That's a real answer. That's the actual answer. You dug deep right there and pulled the real one out. That was the real answer. If you listen to this show for a while, you've heard me and my guests talk a lot about how critical it is to have your wellness goals in order, especially lately with me. So you know how powerful visualization is. When you visualize yourself 1, 10, 30 years from now, you've achieved all your goals. Ask yourself this: am I healthy at that point? In your visions, of course you are. But like anything else, without a plan to get and remain healthy, you can't hit the goal. And that's why I'm so thrilled to be partnering with Life Force. It's co-founded by my good friend Tony Robbins and Peter Diamandis. Life Force is a leader in proactive care. The Life Force membership includes everything you need to understand your wellness and help you make good decisions today that keep you on track in the future for your health. Listeners of my show get $250 when they first sign up for their membership by going to mylifeforce.com/ed. That's mylifeforce.com/ed. Take control of your wellness with Life Force and see what the healthiest version of you actually looks like and is capable of. These products and statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Do you ever feel like, I'm just curious, you get to this level, because all you just said, you are talented. Do you struggle from either one of these two things, or both, or neither? When I started to climb pretty high, and by the way, same thing, I'm like, I'm not this good. This is clearly God. Sometimes when I speak, I'm like, that's the Holy Spirit, because I don't even know where that came from. And sometimes, like, some of the successes I've had are almost some of the great confirmations of my faith, because I know I'm not that good. But as I climbed higher, I struggled with two things at different times, in different doses, that suppressed my expansion until I started to overcome them. The first one was a little bit of imposter syndrome, where, wow, they're going to figure out I don't know everything they think I know. Maybe I'm not this good. I did not have that in sports when I played baseball. I did have it in life and in business when people started to look at me for counsel and advice. So I had a little bit of that. And then the other one was comparison. As I climbed higher, I'm like, wow, I'm in a whole different league here. And I'd start to watch what some of my peers were doing, and it would rip my joy, rip my energy. Like, wow, they did. The higher I climbed, ironically, I compared more than when I did when I wasn't climbing high. Either one of those affect you? And if it did, in which ways?
You know what's fascinating, man? It's like the real thing that I would say affects me is definitely not comparison. It's trying to like be better than my former self.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Back
that's
to the other answer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the heck affects me, is like you, but you were so good then. Why weren't you as good this time? After my first episode of Uncomfortable Conversations, remember I said McConaughey called me, but I didn't want to do a second episode. And you might be thinking, Acho, that's crazy. Your first episode got 25 million views. I didn't want to do a second episode because I was like, you can't beat the first one. Like, how can you beat the first one? And now if you do a second one, it doesn't beat the first one. Well, why'd you do the second one? That's what affects me. What affects me is like, is competing again. I don't compete really against other people. I compete against me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really compete against other people. I'm more so like, be better than yourself. Be better than yourself. That's probably what plagues me. I will though say, dude, the higher you climb, the more you're like, wait, I gotta climb higher. It's weird. It's like this.
It is
a dichotomy of success. The more successful you are, the less successful you feel. It's a very strange paradox.
It's so true. Do you think the reason you're so emotional about some of the questions we're having is A, how grateful you are for the blessings that are in your life, or B, a fear that you're going to miss?
I mean, you bring up my brother, I get emotional.
Mm-hmm.
I love my brother. Like, it just, you know what I mean?
He loves you. Yeah.
Man, I do think I was talking to Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman was like a 3-time UFC champion, one of the baddest men in the world. Oh, one of the baddest men in the world. I asked him a question, maybe my favorite question I ever asked him. And I asked him, to some degree, what you asked me at. I asked him, I said, before you enter into a ring, before you enter into the octagon, and you realize like you could die in there, I said, what motivates you? And he said, my fear of failure is stronger than my thrill of victory. Mm-hmm. And people are like, what the hell are you afraid to? I'm like, dude, he's like, my fear of failure
Mm,
And I think, Ed, it's like,
mm,
I think it's, what if I don't do it? What if I don't do all I was gifted to do? Like, that scares me, like that
mm,
scares me. And then I also think, whenever I think about how blessed I am, there is something very humbling and almost brings me to tears of like, I shouldn't be in this situation. Now,
mm,
I work hard to steward it, but like, I didn't have to be here. You know what I mean?
mm.
Like, it's only
Yeah.
by the grace of God, and I do believe I countered that with obedience, and I supplemented that with obedience, but I don't have to be here. And so when I think about that, it makes me emotional, because it's just like, it's just I'm just so grateful.
This is so good, Emmanuel. If you wanted someone to change, most people would say you got to tell them what to do, right? And you go, not so fast. If you want to get somebody to change, what do you do? Do you tell them what to do, or is there
You
another tact you
if
should
you
take?
want someone to change, remind them who they are.
Mm,
Remind them who they are. Like, and what I mean by that, to those listening and watching, when if I remind Ed that he's a servant, if I remind Ed that he's kind, if I remind Ed that he's humble, that's better than saying, "Hey, Ed, can you think about yourself less, dude? Hey, bro, can you just be nicer? Hey,
mm,
like why don't you freaking turn off the lights last instead of making me like?" Remind somebody who they are. Like, remind somebody that they're beautiful. Remind somebody that they are gracious. Remind somebody that they're funny. Remind somebody that they're meek. Like, don't tell them what to do. Remind them who they are. And from the inside out, almost like that metamorphosis of a butterfly, like you'll see them change.
I'm writing a book right now, Emmanuel, called "Let Me Tell You About You."
I love that.
It's the title of the book. It's the whole premise of the book. You and I are going to do some speaking engagements together. I can tell you that right now. Um, what are the four? You talking about this four thing? Like, it had something to do. I caught it and then I like wrote it down. I was telling my son about it, and then I'm like, I'm messing this up. But it was something about, you're talking about the power of like a hug in someone's life. Because this is important though. Like, there's all these elements of living our best life and helping ourselves and other people. And yes, there's the element of telling someone who they are and reminding them. But there's also something that happens when we're connected to one another as well in a different way.
One, I appreciate you man, navigating this conversation, because obviously you've put time into this. I think so many people listening don't realize sometimes two people just hop on a podcast and they just like,
Yeah.
oh, we're just gonna talk. No,
Mm,
man, like, you've really put time into this dialogue, and it shows. And I hope the listeners and viewers feel honored, because you're
thank you.
honoring my time and you're honoring theirs. As it pertains to scientific evidence, suggests that we need 4 hugs for survival, we need 8 hugs for maintenance, and we need 12 hugs a day for growth. 4 hugs for survival, 8 hugs for maintenance, 12 hugs a day for growth. As we all know, in different psychology classes, et cetera, there's kind of a different dopamine release. There's a different
Mhm,
release when people embrace,
mhm.
and it suggests that, like, yo, if you need 4, 8, and 12. So what I now start to do, and I've done at times, is make sure you're getting your hugs. So when you
Yep.
and fellas, don't be too cool. Don't be too cool to dap your brother up, come in for a hug. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
we don't
Yeah.
need this fake tough guyness. Not in 2024. Life is hard. So 4 hugs is what you need for survival. You need 8 for maintenance, and you need 12 for growth.
So profound. You guys, I got to tell you, you know what I regret most? I wish I would have hugged my kids more. I come from a family that wasn't real touchy feely, and I
Yeah.
carried that into my own home, not to the same extent. I hugged them, but I should have brought them into my physical embrace more often. If I could go back as a dad again, you said, what would you change? I'm splitting hairs here a little bit, but I would hug my babies a lot more. I
I
would
love
just be hugging them, physical touch a lot more. What he just said is so good and so profound and so true. And he's made so many brilliant points today that I don't want the ones that could go right by you to go right by you. It's a big deal to hug our friends. It's a big deal to hug our wives or our significant others. It's a really big deal to hug our children and to be hugged. And as a man, like you just said, to allow yourself to be hugged and allow somebody in your proximity, it doesn't make you weak. What it does is it fills you with spirit. It fills you with dopamine. It fills you with energy. So thank you. That's why I asked you the question, as I wanted to be afforded the opportunity to agree with you on it. This is a hard question, and I know there's not one answer, but I'd like to change my life. I've watched you change your life. I've heard all these strategies and the keys and the insights and the beautiful language in which you express yourself. And I want to change my life, but I'm not even really sure where to begin or what to think. And I feel somewhat powerless to do that. And if they ran into you at a Starbucks somewhere and said, hey, I heard you on Ed Mylett show and he didn't ask you this. I want to change my life. What would your advice or counsel be to that precious soul who wants so badly to make a life better for themselves?
The only one thing came to my mind, and my brother says it all the time, and I think the coach told it to him. So it's not even my words, it's my brother's. And he may have said it on your conversation earlier. He says, little things done well make big things happen. Mm-hmm. Little things done well make big things happen. I believe, Ed, that so often we're fixated upon tomorrow when we don't take care of today. And I love this saying, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. I love that, dude. I love it too. I love it. Because nothing worth doing is done quickly. Nothing. Good. So I would say if you really want to like change your life, do the little things well. I believe, bro, how you do anything is how you do everything. I'm corny. I do wake up every day and I make my bed. It is the first thing I do. You know what I mean? I just, because I'm like, hey, come back to a nice home. I do the little things well. And because I'm like, one day that little thing might be a big thing. So I believe that little things done well make big things happen. If you want to change your life, do the little things well.
You're remarkable, brother. Your family's remarkable. Your brother is. Today was a real blessing for me. And I know it was for millions of people who are going to hear or see this. You are a blessing. And I really believe that's his intention, what he said earlier, to change the world. And I believe he can help you change your world. So Emmanuel Acho, today was special and a real blessing for so many of us. So thank you so much for being here. I feel like we could have gone 3 more hours, and maybe we'll do that again. But nonetheless, I'm grateful for the hour that we spent together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. Genuinely.
It was awesome. Hey, everybody, share this episode. If I have to ask you to share this one, we're in big trouble. You should have already been hitting that button somewhere to give the gift of this conversation with somebody that you love. Whether it makes them uncomfortable or not, send it to them. All right, everybody. God bless you. Max out your life.